Hey guys, we're going to talk about the free content array that CA posted yesterday. I'm going to go over our ideas and thoughts on what the possibilities could be, and then we will go from there. Make sure I'm gonna play the trailer, and then we'll go over the options. See you then. All right, guys, let's talk about possibilities for the new mount option that they announced will be coming in the near future, hopefully. So three things really come to mind. You've got the Griffin for the High Elves, which is going to be in the bottom left corner. You've also got the Troglodon, which is to the right, and that was a highly coveted unit back in the day, probably around a year ago during the Prophet and the Warlock. Everyone wanted and seemed to think that that unit was going to come in that pack. Fortunately, it did not. But I think there was a large outcry from the community saying that they wanted it, and I think that, I mean, it does have a good possibility of making it in. The only thing is, the problem with these two options, I think the High Elf Griffin would probably already be included with the High Elf DLC that everyone thinks is coming up. So, especially since Altharion actually has a High Elf Griffin mount. So I don't think that they would make that separate. I think that would already be included. Then we go to the Troglodon. The Troglodon, I mean, I wish this was in the game. It's one of the only units missing, if not the only unit missing from the Lizardmen roster right now in the game. The only problem I see is the next free update, they labeled it as a new mount and not a new unit. So I would assume that it is only going to be a mount. So the Troglodon, I don't think that would be just a mount. It's going to be a unit too. Like, think about the Carnosaur. You've got the Feral Carnosaur, and then you have the Carnosaur as a mount. So I don't think that they would put the Troglodon in the game and only have it as a mount. Therefore, I don't think it would be the Troglodon. And you've got the Coven Throne. Very similar to the Mortis engine. So I think that is a good option if it makes the most sense out of these three, and I think these three are probably the most popular picks. You've also got people saying the Empire Mechanical Steed. I don't think that would make it in, because then you would need engineers, and engineers aren't in the game right now. So let's get to the next bit of news. They said that the new Legendary Lord is going to come out too. Everyone knows that usually every update comes with a free Legendary Lord. My top three picks, you've got the High Elf Imric. So everyone thinks he's going to come in. There's definitely some good arguments for him to come in, and he's in the bottom left. I think it makes sense to bring him in because there's no Legendary Lord right now for the High Elves that has a dragon mount, and dragons are one of the pinnacle pillars of the High Elf army roster. So I don't think it makes sense to have it doesn't make sense to have a High Elf Lord that can't ride a dragon, a Legendary Lord, because you've got the normal lords, they could ride the dragons, but no Legendary Lord. Arguments against this, people think that since his items are already in the game, that he's not going to make it in the game, and I don't think that's a pretty bad argument, I think, because they could always change that up. If you noticed, the Fellblade, the legendary Skaven Blade, is in the game already, and I think, I mean, if they wanted to add that type of mechanic similar to the Sword of Cain, I think all they have to do is really take that item out and switch it out with the legendary version. So they would take the Dragon Horn and the Worm Lance out and just put a legendary version, or they could just change the name of those items so it's not a conflict. I think he's got a good option. He would probably start in Kalidor, but then again, if you think about it, it doesn't make sense to have 3 High Elf Legendary Lords start in Ulthuan, especially if you get Altharion coming in the next DLC, then there'll be 4. So there's not a lot of diversity in that, so I don't think that that would make much sense. He would maybe start, I think, maybe down by the there's a settlement, Elven Ruins, that's in Neferata, and it's just weird that it's just called Elven Ruins. That looks like a placeholder. And I'm also going to have a new video coming up within the week about like map speculation, where they could put certain lords if they added them, and then some weird empty spots that look like placeholder spots that they could possibly add different characters to in the future. Let's go to the next option, the Dwarf Lord Malachi, Slayer Engineer type hero. They do need to fill the slot of Legendary Lord for the Engineer, so I don't know if that's an option they can go with. He could probably start in the Spine of Sotek region down there, bottom left, because I know they're probably going to want to get 1 Lord of each game 1 race in the Vortex campaign, so I mean that's possible. Mechanics for him, emphasis on Slayers and maybe some emphasis on the Engineers. I don't know if I like him as much as I do either Imric, or we can get to the next Lord, which is Neferata. I think she would be a good option. She's one of the first vampires in the lore, and she has a very unique rivalry with High Queen Khalida. So, and also if you play as her in the Tomb Kings campaign, you can notice that she screams for Neferata's head often. So if you listen closely in the game, you can find different vocalizations. You could listen to like the Lizardmen, they talk about Krokar sometimes. You could also hear them talk about Tehenowin, and that was before Tehenowin was even in the game. They mentioned him, so I think that's a good hint if Khalida is talking about Neferata. Meanwhile, she's not in the game yet, so I think her being referenced is a possibility that she could be in the game based on past events. So let's get to my picks. I think that the new mount would probably be the Coven Throne. My argument for this is, you think about it, the Shrine of Cain, not the Shrine of Cain, the Blood Cauldron, or the Witch Elves, the mount, it's just a mount. There's no unit option for that. So in order to get a Blood Cauldron, you need to have a Witch Elf on a mount, or Hellebrand. There's no option for it just to be a unit in the army. That is different compared to the Medusa, Bloodrack Medusa Shrine. That's a unit. So I think, this is my train of thought, they're probably going to take the skeleton they use for the Mortis engine, and they're going to make that into the Coven Throne, and then have the Vampire Hero or the Vampire Lord for the Lamians, and then Neferata too. I think they'll all have an option for the Coven Throne now. So basically the Witch Elves from the Dark Elves faction, they've got the the Blood Cauldron mount. And then I think the vampires will get the Coven Throne mount as a added FLC. And then that would go perfectly with Neferata as the FLC Lord. So I think she's got a strong chance of making it in. She would probably start in Lamia, obviously, in the Mortal Empires campaign. I don't know about the Vortex campaign. Maybe she'll probably start in Neferata, because they need some diversity over there right now. Otherwise, it's just the Tomb Kings, and you've got Rapunz over there too, and then you've got, to the lower part in the Vortex campaign, you've got the Southlands. But I think that Neferata would be a good addition to the game. Especially my train of thought for her is there's a couple reasons I think that she'll make it in. It's because of Alita referencing her, and then also the High Elves are getting their DLC soon. I think that it would go perfectly if they revamp that political intrigue system that they have. I think they're going to want to show that off somehow in other regards, not just have it for the High Elves, but in the lore, Neferata and the Lamian vampires are very into political intrigue. So I think if they gave her faction access to that mechanic, it would go perfectly. And I think it would be a good way to like branch people off maybe into buying that High Elf DLC or playing as the High Elves. And I think it'd be a good way for them to like reuse an asset. So like free lords, they usually don't have a lot to them. So like I think the most successful lord that they launched for free was hang on a blank here, Alathanar, because he's got a free unit too. So I think like if you look at tic-tac-toe, he really doesn't have anything, like he didn't get anything except for him as the lord. Like he has special mechanics, yeah, he's got the pterodactyls and everything like that, but he didn't come with anything new. It's something that I feel like CA probably tries to get like the most bang for their buck, so they're probably going to use that intrigue system to make her seem unique, which it will make her unique, and it'll be definitely a different type vampire playthrough compared to the vampire counts. So she would go perfectly with that. They can use hopefully the revamped, get it? Revamped political intrigue system. Vampire. Gonna go right into the street. But seriously, and it'll also go perfectly with the Coven Throne. And she could also have early access to Lamian vampire lords in the bloodline system. Maybe she could just have those recruitable whenever she wants. And then maybe she could also talk about having improved vampire hero recruitment and everything like that. And then in the lore, she also has a unique Tomb Guard unit, like a loyal Tomb Guard. So that could be also a good thing to throw in there. Maybe she has a unique regiment of Tomb Guard, like a regiment of renown. So that would also tie her into the Tomb King's roster too. Maybe she can get some of those units, but I don't think that they would do that, because then people would have that locked behind the Tomb King paywall, unless they make them free for her. That could also bring people in to buy the Tomb King's pack too. So there's a bunch of different things that can go on. I think that is the best possibility. Those are my picks: Neferata as the free LC and the Coven Throne as the new mount. Be sure to be on the lookout for more videos. I'm going to have a campaign map speculation video coming up soon, and when the DLC finally gets announced, I will probably have early access. So definitely feel free to subscribe. It does help me out a lot. And make sure to comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are and what you think will be the FLC Lord and the FLC mount. Thank you guys.